On the ninth day of Sean Diddy Combs' trial, Usher Raymond walked into the courtroom, and the crowded gallery was filled with whispers. Many assumed he was there to explain minor industry backdrop or offer background character testimony. But he had something in mind, a planned, unanticipated intervention that would fundamentally alter the course of the trial. Despite not being initially named as a key witness for the prosecution, Usher was subpoenaed following a sealed video due to a last-minute court request. Please be aware that the following is solely for entertainment and educational reasons. The courtroom fell silent as Usher quietly turned over a recording he had been keeping secret for years, unsure whether releasing it would do more harm than. His opening remarks on the stand were simple but chilling as a child. "I thought I was learning about the business, but now I know I was being introduced to something else." The man he had once referred to as a mentor had long since transformed into a figure he no longer recognized and dreaded, as though he had finally relieved a load he had carried for decades. He talked with a gloomy tranquility rather than wrath. A horrifying story of his early years in Diddy's care ensued, detailing how, at the age of 13, he was forced to live at his house under the watchful eye of music industry elders who believed Diddy could guide him. He remembered the ambiance, the parties that went on late into the night, the odd guests, and the feeling that there were no limits to the mansion. He testified about waking up in places he couldn't recall staying in, about security guards ignoring him, and about being urged to maintain secrets if he wanted to survive in the industry. He also stated that it was a grooming ground that went beyond merely music. Usher clarified that he first got involved with Diddy in the early 1990s, when he was just beginning to make a name for himself in the business, desperate to provide her gifted kid a solid foundation. His mother believed Diddy could guide him through the hazy world of entertainment. Usher claimed that she believed he knew how to create stars and could keep me safe. She probably had no idea what he was really exposing me to. "I have something to show you. I didn't want to, but I can't keep hidden anymore," Usher continued, pausing as prosecutors pushed forward in their seats and reporters scrawled rapidly. Usher described camp sessions as late-night adult parties, posing as mentorship retreats, and he told the court about long evenings and peculiar restrictions. Young artists often experienced sounds they could not understand, like shouts, laughter, or loud music followed by tears, and they were not allowed to leave their rooms after certain hours. He was instructed to go inside the green room one evening. While Diddy was hosting visitors, Usher claimed he was instructed to sit down, watch, and learn. "There were girls in there," he stated, "but they didn't look like they were having fun. They looked scared." According to Usher's evidence, he had, "Since speaking up wasn't safe, I did the only thing I could. I took notes." He began listing certain incidents, times, and actions, and he asserted that Diddy, a man who came forward to the federal investigators, was at the center of it all. His revelations were startling, not only because of what he witnessed, but also because of the other people who were there. During those years, the home was frequented by well-known figures in the industry, some of whom are now household names and millionaires. As Usher described the film, which was given to him by a former house staffer who had worked security at one of Diddy's private estates in the early 2000s. The courtroom held its breath. Usher stated this footage was not meant to be seen, adding that the person who took it might vanish if it were ever released. Usher painstakingly recounted the video's contents to the jury. It was shown in a private courtroom setting after being confirmed by digital forensic specialists earlier in the week, sitting in a red-lit private room with a woman and a few men. Usher clarified that he was unsure about what to do with the tape that he had received anonymously 5 years prior. "I was afraid," he stated, "for the woman in the video, afraid for what it meant. Afraid that if I said anything, I'd end up in the same situation as others who appear visibly intoxicated or unconscious. The woman is partially undressed and unresponsive, and Diddy can be heard laughing, giving instructions and at one point slapping the woman lightly and saying, 'Wake up. You still have tasks to complete.'" The judge, obviously aware of the gravity of what was about to happen, approved the entry of the video into evidence with a heavy sigh. Diddy's lawyers objected repeatedly as he spoke, but the judge allowed the testimony to continue, citing its relevance to establishing a pattern of behavior. Later that afternoon, news of the video leaked to press outlets and the story exploded across headlines. The Diddy trial had already been controversial, but now it had become radioactive. And Usher, once the prodigy shaped by Diddy himself, became the witness no one could silence. When Usher, steady but clearly emotional, pointed to the USB drive he had turned in, the courtroom fell silent. "This is the video I've been holding on to for over a decade," he said, and the video began to play. The 5-minute clip, which was recorded with what looked like a hidden camera, was shaky with poor lighting, but it was unmistakably clear in audio. The scene was a lavish penthouse apartment, and Diddy's voice could be heard loud and confident, as he addressed a group of young artists and assistants who were seated nervously in front of him. Diddy was shirtless and pacing as he went into detail about how the industry works, laying out a system of favors, expectations, and consequences. Then his tone changed. At one point, Diddy was talking about sacrifice and commitment, and then he was talking about clearing up problems and eliminating people who spoke up. "And your whole family suffers," he said, describing rituals that didn't seem like they were recorded in a studio. "Consult with others. Ask Cassie what happens when you room with R. Mo Usher.K Usher," he flinched. Lynched Usher stepped back from the monitor, wiping a tear from his cheek. Diddy's voice could be heard saying, "They know." The camera captured one young man in the corner, clearly shaking. The next sentence made everyone watching shudder. Diddy's legal team asked for an immediate recess, claiming that the footage was deeply biased and out of context, but the judge turned down their request. The damage had been done. Diddy sat motionless, his eyes fixed on the floor, his jaw clenched. For the first time since the trial started, he looked like a man who knew he might not walk free. A few jurors wiped away their tears as the recording came to an end, and reporters had to be warned not to live tweet. Even worse for the defense, several of the people in the video had already been named in other lawsuits against Diddy that had previously been sealed but were still under investigation. Again, the prosecution had more than just testimony. They had a recording that captured the tone, the threats, and the manipulation. Usher testified that the video was taken during a mentor weekend in 2012 where young male artists were invited to what was described as a bonding retreat. The defense hurried to claim the video was fake. But a forensic expert was already scheduled to testify that the footage was real and unaltered. The courtroom recessed for the day, but the air buzzed with energy. It was no longer a case of Caddy's reckoning. A group of tracers gathered outside. One of them yelled, "Is this Diddy's downfall?" Purportedly from the video, contacted prosecutors that same afternoon asking to testify, despite the judge's gag. Order leaks had already surfaced online within 24 hours of the footage going public, dividing the music industry. Drake immediately unfollowed Diddy on social media, and Beyoncé's team issued a statement. A murmur swept through the crowd, and everyone knew the answer. The king of bad boy records was now radioactive. The public was watching. Streaming services began pulling some of Diddy's catalog for review, and sponsors connected to his business empire began cutting ties. But the biggest shock came when Quincy Jones said, "There is a sickness in the industry that we've ignored for too long." The board of Revolt TV called an emergency meeting. Quincy, an elder godfather in the industry, made a groundbreaking declaration that went beyond Diddy. "If what I have seen and heard is real, it's time to burn it down and rebuild." The courtroom was scheduled to resume the following morning, and everyone knew the cross-examination would be harsh, but the conversation had changed. Meanwhile, Usher was being hailed as a hero not because he was perfect, but because he had dared to break ranks. "I knew I'd lose people I considered family," he told the press, "but the truth has to matter more." Despite this, Usher was not without fear, adding he had beefed up his personal security. Rumors were circulating that other artists were preparing to speak out, spurred by the tape, and one producer close to Diddy allegedly fled the country. The next morning, the courtroom was still a flurry of activity, but Usher's confession on the stand put a halt to it all. "There's something I've never admitted publicly, and I've carried the weight of it for years," Usher said, turning to the jury with a somber voice and lowered eyes. "I brought Justin Bieber to Diddy because I felt I was opening a door for Kid. Usher added, "but I was setting him up for something I didn't completely comprehend back in 2008. Yes. I handed him just reporter's voice over mid-keystroke. Usher, who used to call Justin his little brother, believed that bringing Diddy in would only help the up-and-coming star. Usher's tone in court, however, made it apparent that this was about sorrow more than elevation. Usher remarked, "The same. Parties, the satraps, PS, and I thought maybe Diddy's just trying to guide him. However, I noticed the signs tension, tiredness, and fear, and Usher froze, his eyes crimson, as I watched the same cycle start to replay with him. Justin was 15 when he came back, and I vividly remember the precise moment I felt awful about it." Usher asserted that Diddy began attempting to cut Bieber out of the picture completely as his fame soared. He went to his room and locked the door after explaining, "I became unnecessary because I had already survived it once, and because speaking out back then meant disappearing. You think we don't notice who vanishes in this industry? It's different," he said. Fact that the courtroom still existed in a society where secrets are valuable was something. "I never forgot this admission was potentially devastating and invaluable." The most eerie statement followed. "I wasn't just replaced by Justin, but I was the offering." Although Justin Bieber wasn't present in court, his name was prominently displayed in sealed documents, including testimony, and now in whispers. Usher's comments sparked a silent online uproar. After fans wanted answers, the question, "What did Justin see?" went viral in a matter of hours. But according to people familiar with the trial, Burr may have seen more than anyone thought and may have been coerced into keeping quiet. In a now unsealed 2015 deposition from a separate civil case, prosecutors said Bieber was up until this point. The material had been largely censored, but one question stuck out. "Did you ever feel unsafe while working under Mr. Combs' supervision?" I don't want to discuss Bieber's lawyer's objection because Bieber's reaction was already recorded. In response to questions, he added, "They said I'd be sued, that I'd lose everything. And there's stuff on tape that they could use," Usher said. Bieber had called him following a party Diddy had thrown in Miami, accusing him of having cameras all over the place, denying them access to rooms, and having people he had never met before, including grown men who weren't even in the music business. But the most incriminating proof might have started as a private text message exchange between Bieber and an unnamed Diddy Circle producer. When the prosecutors played the message in court, Usher was questioned once more about why he brought Justin to Diddy. The producer answered, "You weren't supposed to remember what you saw. You left early." The public is now demanding a comment from Justin Bieber. But people close to the singer believe he's scared and may have been silenced for years owing to NDA agreements. "I thought I was giving him the world," he muttered. "And I didn't know I was handing him to a predator. To put it simply, and we all failed him," Usher said. The courtroom isn't this industry has blood on its hands. Eddie's, Michael Whitney, Prince, Cassie, and maybe Justin too. We keep pretending drugs, stress, fame, or SD but me. .TME, but behind all of it are fear, control, and exploitation, Usher explained to the judge in his final moments on the stand. Longer felt like a trial, a final exorcism of 10 years' worth, of buried trauma, secrets, and betrayals. And at the center of it all sat Diddy Combs, still silently unraveling. Power, money, and a legacy built on silence and fear. Subpoenas were reportedly issued for other individuals involved in Bieber's early career in the days that followed. It is unclear if Justin will testify, but Usher's testimony tore through the facade, exposing not just Diddy but the entire machine. As the court adjourned for the day, the crowd outside exploded with cameras and reporters. transforming what had begun as a case about Cassie's abuse allegations into a monstrous web of psychological warfare, celebrity exploitation, and generational suffering under simply buried. All started with a single act of bravery when Usher finally quit protecting the system that had once tried to destroy him. More tapes, testimonies, and survivors would come. After Usher's heartbreaking last testimony, the media frenzy descended into a full-scale detonation. Think pieces dissected every aspect of the testimony and its ramifications for the music industry overall. As headlines shouted Usher, Diddy, and Clive Davis on the grooming web. The most shocking event, though, wasn't what Usher stated. Rather, it was who came forward later. Within 48 hours, 2 additional former Bad Boy Records artists got in touch with the prosecution. Insiders told us that they were both male artists who had collaborated closely with Desi. As we were collaborated closely with Desi. If you're using like a scanner app and it's like you're gonna die. Like, look at this. Like, look at this. And we all know we conlorded Desi. And we all know I've been exploring that. And we beside us told us that they were both. I get again with say Desi. I get ATY Sureed. I get AD with Diddy in the early 2000s and had long since disappeared from the public eye. Though their identities were not immediately made public, according to reports, one of them had entirely disappeared and the other was allegedly battling addiction and had been in and out of rehab for years. Leaked court transcripts claimed that the new witnesses verified Usher's timeline, which included details regarding Justin Bieber as well as long-rumored but never verified private parties, handlers, monitoring, and rituals. He didn't just he tested your limits, according to one witness. And if you uncomfortably, this was congruent with footage that was recently shared on social media, which showed a 15-year-old Justin Bieber standing next to Diddy, clearly uncomfortable, as Diddy boasted. You know what I'm saying? For 48 hours, I will be spending time with him. Previously dismissed as awkward humor, the video was now being analyzed frame by frame as evidence of something more sinister. We're going to do some grown man stuff. An anonymous hairstylist who had worked with Bieber during the My World era told a major outlet about her experience, saying that Bieber would return on multiple occasions. Diddy said to her, "I feel like I'm not real anymore, like I'm someone else when I'm with him." After she had been notably frightened and silent during their meetings, often refusing to talk to anyone for hours at a time. He broke an unspoken oath, an anonymous record executive told Rolling Stone, and we all knew that we were all silent. At the time, she thought it was adolescent angst, but now she wonders if it was trauma. Other celebrities, such as Tyrese Gibson and Tamar Braxton, Jaguar Wright, responded with cautious support, posting cryptic messages on Instagram stories, implying they'd seen similar things but were too scared to talk about Chris Brown. The following night, Kanye West, who had already taken the stance earlier in the week, went all out in a surprise live stream saying, "I told you you didn't listen," while sporting a black hoodie and showing no emotion. "They came to get Mike. Whitney was the reason they came. And they came to get me." Do you believe Diddy acts by himself? Diddy is a soldier on foot. You have no idea how deep this whole thing goes. The initial layer was just broken by Usher, but if you dig further, you'll discover the devil grinning. While perched on a throne, however, there was a final twist. A sealed document from 2017 was leaked to a major outlet, revealing that Usher had attempted to approach law enforcement once before. While some dismissed Kanye's claims as conspiracy-laced rambling, others couldn't ignore the uncanny alignment of his claims with the events taking place in court. The Department of Justice reportedly contacted Usher's legal team to discuss his testimony and the evidence submitted. There was no formal investigation into Diddy beyond the current civil and criminal charges. Insiders say the federal government is closely monitoring and could intervene if trafficking or coercion can be proven across state lines. In addition to shocking a courtroom Usher's decision to make public the secret video testimonies about Justin and implicate the machine behind Diddy's empire broke a decades-long pact of silence and gave voice to the voiceless. The story had changed, and Diddy was no longer just on trial for what had happened with Cassie. He was now the face of something darker that had been going on in the background for far too long. The complaint, which detailed possible grooming and coercive behavior targeting minors within Diddy's circle, was ignored, and the officer who filed it later left the department. Now the shadows were shouting.